but God stopped them. And what we're showing on this program is that Islam veers off all the way, wholehearted acceptance of paganism, and Muslims just think it's okay because Muhammad did it. But go ahead and continue your point.
Yeah, I'm a practicing Muslim. I'm practicing, thanks to Allah, I am a practicing Muslim. Jesus came and dealt with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. What the Pharisees and Sadducees did is they were all about money, and they made God seem like an all-hating person. They made God seem like that. Now, Jesus came to let them know he's all-loving, all-caring, okay? So he was the last prophet. We believe he was the last prophet in the line of Judea. That's why Muhammad came from the other side. He came in the land of Arabia where there's so much miracles involved with Prophet Muhammad that it's so funny how you're bashing him. Islam is 1.7 billion. It's strong. No matter how much you put the show on, it's going to grow. It's the fastest growing religion in the world.
Okay, hold on, Omar. We got to go to a break. Omar, hold on.
Stay on the line.
We got to go to a break. Don't leave.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a break and we will be back. We're back, and we'll go to Omar and David.
Omar, just to clarify something you just said, you pointed out that there are 1.7 billion Muslims in the world and that Islam is the fastest growing religion. We addressed this on the show yesterday. One, there's not 1.7 billion, but if you're comfortable with that number, that's fine. Why is Islam growing fast? And it's the actual reason, if you look at the statistics, is that many Muslim countries are third world countries, which are part of the criterion for being a third world country is high birth rates. We find in, even here in the West, in Europe, for instance, that Muslim birth rates are 3 times higher than that of non-Muslims. So it's not because people are converting to Islam around the world. People are converting to Islam, that's true, but that's not where you're getting this massive increase in Islam. It's because of your birth rates, because many Muslim countries are third world countries. But now you just said, because remember a few minutes ago, I said, why? Give us a reason. So we have all of this evidence against Muhammad. We find all of these problems with Muhammad. We never see any reason to believe in Muhammad. You actually gave us an argument. You didn't clarify it, so I'm hoping you'll clarify it. You gave us an argument that Muhammad was a prophet. You said there are so many miracles associated with Muhammad, but you didn't give us an example. So could you give us some examples of what you mean by Muhammad performing miracles? Because if you can show us that Muhammad performed miracles, then we'll have to take that into consideration. So what do you mean when you say that? Because you keep changing the subject. You make a point, and then I address it and refute it, and then you move on to something else. But let's get on this issue of miracles. What miracles show that Muhammad was a true prophet?
Okay. The last person the Jews accept is Ezra, right? The last person the Christians accept is Jesus. And the last person the Muslims accept is Muhammad, peace be upon him, okay? Now, when Nebuchadnezzar burnt the temples in Jerusalem, right? This is history we're talking about. I'm not making this up. This is from my understanding of doing research. Nebuchadnezzar burned down the temples and all the Torahs were burnt, okay? Now, the Old Testament. And who was the one who memorized it? It was Ezra. So then they started claiming that Ezra was the son of God. Okay, Jesus...
Hey, Omar, we've spent many years studying Christianity. We have no clue what you're talking about right now. Could you please give us some sources for what you're saying?
Omar, let me comment real quickly. You're getting these sources not from Jewish history, because you said Nebuchadnezzar burnt all the copies of the Torah. That's refuted by the Old Testament. Read the book of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar is in the very palace of the king of Babylon, and he ministered during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar all the way until the Persians took over. In Daniel chapter 9, if you read verses 1 to 3, you're going to see that Daniel has scrolls of the prophetic books. One of those books include the Torah of Moses. Daniel chapter 9, verses 1 to 3, and verses 11 and 13. He mentions the scroll of Jeremiah and the prophecy that Jeremiah made that the Jews would be in captivity for 70 years. And then he mentions all the curses falling upon the Israelites as recorded in the law of Moses, which means that he has a copy of the law of Moses and he's reading it. So this myth that you're quoting from doesn't come from accurate, authentic history, nor does it come from the Old Testament writings. It comes from myths and fables that were written centuries afterwards.
He also said the Jews called Ezra the son of God.
Yeah, that's from the Quran. So you make 2 points, but again, Daniel chapter 9, verses 1 to 3, I'm giving you the sources. Daniel is ministering to the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, in the king's palace. You can read it, Daniel, just read the book. Daniel 9, verses 1 to 3, and verses 11 and 13, he makes reference to the law of Moses, as well as the book of Jeremiah, or the scroll of Jeremiah. And in Daniel 9, it's written after the Persians have conquered and defeated the Babylonians. So how could you say Nebuchadnezzar burnt all the copies of the Torah when Daniel has a copy of the Torah in Babylon as he's ministering during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar all the way till the reigns of the Persian kings? I don't get it.
I'm not a scholar. You're thinking, look, I'm only 19 years old and I'm doing my research.
Good.
Praise God.
Okay, well,
praise God.
We're glad you're studying this. Most young people are not studying this or taking it seriously. Yes. So we're glad you're doing that. But go ahead.
Yes. We're not knocking you, by the way.
I'm not a scholar. You're trying to, you know what I mean? Like, the beautiful verse in Proverbs that says, how much better to get wisdom than gold?
Amen.
This is wisdom. Wisdom seeking truth and finding it.
We agree.
Scriptures, and I don't deny nothing. And you know what? You keep cutting me off.
Omar.
It's the longest time with you.
We have to cut you off if you say something false. We're not going. The purpose of this show is to get the truth out about
Amen.
Christianity and about Islam. If someone, whether Christian or Muslim, says something false about Christianity or Islam, we want to cut that person off so we can correct it. Otherwise, you'll just keep talking as if you've established some truth. So as long as you don't say something false, then we won't jump in on you. But as we've seen, you haven't really gone more than 30 or 40 seconds without saying something that is false, obviously false.
And Omar, with all due respect, we can't just let you bring up 10 points. We have to deal with 1 point at a time. So bring up one specific point, make your case for it so we can address it.
And I've specifically asked if you made a claim. You made a claim. We want to examine the truth on this show. You made a claim that there are so many miracles associated with Muhammad. I'm asking you for one. Now, if you can give 2 or 3 very quickly, that would be even better. But what would be your best example of a miracle, of whatever sort, a miracle associated with Muhammad? Because all we ever find is evidence against Muhammad. We never find any reason to believe in Muhammad. Give us your best example.
It's the Quran. It is the Quran. It is the Quran. And you can bash it all you want. Well, the truth will prevail. Just like Moses, when he threw the stick, it turned into a snake. Just like Jesus, he healed the blind, healed the sick, brought the dead back to life. All prophets had miracles. Solomon was able to bend metal. He was able to bend iron. They all had miracles. And the final miracle is the Quran.
And you believe, Omar, don't cut him off. I don't want to lose him. Omar, since you believe the Quran is a miracle, you believe everything it says is true, and that whatever it says will happen shall happen, right? You agree with that, right? Is he on?
64 years after Christ, the great fire of Rome happened, and what happened? It was blamed on Christians. They took the Christians.
Okay. Omar, we don't want to have to cut you off. If you're not going to listen, you're getting emotional, we're going to have to cut it off. You said the Quran is a miracle, therefore you believe whatever the Quran says will happen, must happen. That's I'm correct to assume that. Well, if you're watching last night's program, and I can't go back because we're dealing with another subject, according to your Quran, it says the followers of Christ would prevail from the time of Christ's ascension till the day of resurrection. Chapter 3, verse 55 of the Quran. Chapter 61, verse 14 says, Allah promised Jesus that his followers, from the time Jesus was taken to heaven, would dominate and be uppermost till the day of resurrection. And 61:14 shows that Allah actually